welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join. This is going to be a lot of fun. We have some educational content up front, and then we're going to have a workshop session for kind of the latter half, which is just going to be a lot of fun to get some hands-on experience with Agentic AI. So my name is Mike Redboard. I'm head of experience at Agent.ai. Excited to be here today.
Hi, I'm Nikki Kamau. I'm the marketing director over at SmartBug Media. And I'm one of those people that's working in AI every day, trying to do my job a little bit better, a little bit faster, more productive. Yeah, so I'm excited to have everybody here.
Very cool. Let's get to it. So to talk a little bit about what we are going to cover today, because we have a bunch of time and a couple of different formats to have some fun with. We're just going to talk briefly about purpose. This session may or may not be like other webinars or trainings or whatever you think this is. It might be a little bit different. So we want to talk to you a bit about purpose and what we're going to do today. Then we're going to talk briefly about kind of AI 101. So what is AI? What are LLMs? How are they different than agents? Talk a bit about prompting. Our assumption is folks have some light experience with with AI, but probably are not like fully formed AI wizards. So we're going to try to speak to where folks are on that journey. Then we're going to show you how to build agents in a pretty fast, no code way on Agent.ai, and then it's your turn to build. We will probably get through this first three in about maybe the better part of an hour. We'll take a quick break, and then we will spend the last half really with you doing hands-on work, building something yourself. So when you leave the session, you too will have built a piece of Agentic AI that you can use at work or for fun. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's next. All right. So let's get into it. And let's talk about purpose, because I want everybody to be on the same page as we kind of wander into uncharted waters and do this all together. So there are really three things that we want to do today, but the most important thing that I want to call out for you, you're taking this time out of your workday, you're probably even doing it on a work machine, those of you who have that, but this session is really more about fun and less about work. So we're going to spend some time understanding some AI basics, and then we're going to build something fun. The more fun that you have and the more kind of hands-on experience you get with these AI tools, the better you're going to be able to apply them across all the spheres of your life: personal, professional, family, whatever it is. And so the emphasis here is really on kind of having some fun, asking questions, having conversation, and getting that hands-on experience. And then hopefully at the end, you can share your brilliance with your network too. So with that said, let's get into the content here. About the next, I don't know, half hour or so is going to be kind of the educational piece of today's session. So if you wanted to focus on drinking coffee or refill your coffee or whatever it is, now would be a good time to do it. All right. Nikki, should we get into it?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
All right. Let's hit it. So I'm going to start at the very beginning, because I want to make sure that even if you have never opened ChatGPT, or even if you're concerned about the future of AI and it taking over humanity or something, I want to make sure that even if you're kind of on the ground floor of knowledge here, that you can keep up and kind of get a lot of value out of this session. So the very, very first question that we are going to answer today is, what is AI? And the answer that I would like to offer to you is that it is just software. It's software like Zoom that you're using. It's software like Gmail. It's software like HubSpot or Salesforce or lots of other softwares that you've used. Now, it's a different category of software that can kind of learn from examples and perform some tasks based off of that learning. So just like a human can learn, and if I see a lot of pictures of cats, I'll then know what a cat looks like. Or if I hear a lot of stories about cats, I can write similar stories. Or if I read a lot of medical journals, I'll sort of learn some veterinary science. So just like a human learns by seeing, by reading, and by experiencing, AI can learn by seeing lots of examples and then appear to perform tasks in a way a human would. So on the right side here, if we show an AI every picture of a cat that there is out there, and if you're like me and you spent a lot of time on the internet, you know that there are like a lot of cat pictures out there, right? So if we fed an AI all the cat pictures, it could then better differentiate. And if we asked it, which of these two images, this orange fellow or this green fellow, is a cat, it would deduce, it would infer, it would probabilistically judge that the one on the left is more likely to be a cat. Why? Well, it's got two ears, it's kind of fuzzy, it's got this little pink nose, it's got this kind of cute pout on its face. Okay, that looks more like a cat than the thing on the right side, which has leaves and lives in the dirt and like is just not really like the images here. So AI is just software that by seeing lots and lots of examples can infer, deduce, use probabilities to judge answers to our questions, like which one of these two pictures is a cat. Would you want AI to perform veterinary science or surgery on your cat after reading a bunch of journals? No, right? But it can answer the question of is this a cat or not? And then you can apply sort of your taste and your human judgment to understand if it was accurate or not. So if we go one level deeper, right, and we talk a little bit about how AI works under the hood, there's one more step here. So if an AI has seen every picture of a cat that's out there, right, it gets more and more data and kind of gets more and more data into its corpus, into its database, right? Gets millions, millions, or trillions of pieces of information in. What it's doing under the hood is it's organizing that information into a database that it can then reference. And it can reference in order to answer questions from us, from the users. So what we do is we feed AI lots and lots of examples. And when you hear in the news, oh, AI quote unquote learned to do something new today, that basically has to do with it either getting its hands on more data that people are feeding it, or learning to better organize that data and retrieve that data, just like any other piece of software. So if anything, this stuff is not a magical creation. It's a bit of a magic trick. But by feeding AI all the pictures of cats, by helping it organize those data into better data structures, it can better answer, yes, this is in fact a cat and not a plant. But the key thing to remember is AI is, it's deducing, it's inferring, it's making predictions, its judgments are probabilistic, right? It doesn't know like you or me. It doesn't have taste or experience like you or me. It's math, it's software that's trying to, help, in a way, humans to answer questions. All right, so that's AI in general. Let's talk a little bit about large language models. So I'm sure you all have seen ChatGPT or Claude.ai or Gemini, and these are large language models, which is kind of a subcategory of AI software. So this LLM stuff as a subcategory of AI software feels very much like a human assistant. When you go to chatgpt.com, it's basically saying, hey, what can I help you with today? And it can do a heck of a lot of stuff. It can write emails, it can analyze documents, generate images or ideas, answer questions, maybe about cats, maybe about work, maybe about what you want to eat for dinner tonight, whatever it is. These LLMs are really being designed nowadays to be general purpose human assistants. And there are lots of companies that are in the race to make the best one because it's really, really exciting. The idea that this could help every single human on Earth, all 8 billion of us, live a better, more fulfilled life. So you have OpenAI making ChatGPT. Their model is called GPT, and then there's various sort of numbers and stuff that denote which models they are. Lives at chatgpt.com. Anthropic is probably the major competitor to OpenAI, and it lives at Claude.ai, and its model is called Claude. And then all of the kind of last generation tech players, the Googles, the Metas, the Twitters, all of them are also developing large language models. And some of them are actually getting pretty good. They were kind of late entrants to the party, but I think in particular Gemini is getting better recently. And it lives at gemini.google.com. And so like all pieces of software, certain companies are creating platforms that are better at certain things versus others. HubSpot's better at certain things than Salesforce. Salesforce is better at certain things than Airtable, right? So just like any category of software, there are flavors, and we as humans will have preferences as to what we like and dislike each platform to do. But when you go to any one of these three, you're actually going to see a pretty similar user interface. It kind of wasn't always this way, but maybe starting about a year ago, pretty much all of these large language models settled on this type of interface, kind of one search box, kind of like Google, a pretty simple experience. And they ask you some question that's kind of similar, like, ChatGPT says, what can I help you with? Claude says, good afternoon, Mike. It's a little, I don't know, chattier in that way. And Gemini, says Gemini for my company domain, and then enter a prompt. It's a little more machine-like, right? But in any event, they've all settled on the same UI pattern. And I think that's very, very telling because these large language models are in fact being designed to be general purpose human assistants. They can do a lot and they can do it all reasonably well, but they don't have specific kind of purposes built into their UI yet. Nikki, anything to add on large language models?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy diving into them kind of in all of the aspects of my work now. And for example, just this earlier this week, I was prepping for career day at my son's school, actually. And I was like, great, like I know what I do every day, but how do I explain this to little kids? And just getting that kind of like the blank page scaries to go away by talking to ChatGPT and being like, hey, I'm trying to do this. And just getting an outline even was so helpful for me to then move on to the next thing, which I actually then brought it over to a different AI tool. I brought it over into Slide, I think it's Slide AI, and use their AI to then bring that outline to life a little bit more, and get even a further head start. And it's just getting rid of that initial stage of, oh no, blank page, oh no, blank slides. How do I move on from here and not stall at that point?
I think it's so interesting you say that too, as like a lifelong creative. Like your bread and butter as a marketer is creativity, is kind of the
Right.
taking the blank page and bringing it to life. It's so interesting that these are a useful tool on that journey.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. All right, good stuff. So that's about LLMs, right? Large language models, and really think of them as these general purpose assistants. And so when you go to work with a large language model and you enter something into that like one box on ChatGPT, what you're doing is called prompting. So folks have probably been doing this to various degrees of sophistication here on the call. But let's talk about prompting for a moment, because even if you don't go through with the build in the second half of this workshop, prompting is something that I think is a really, really useful life skill kind of nowadays. And we'll talk about simple prompts, complex prompts, and the good and the bad of both. So prompting is how you give instructions to LLMs. And so you can say a bunch of things. And all four of these bullets here are examples of prompts. You can say, tell me a bedtime story, explain how photosynthesis works at a PhD level, and you'll get something that's probably more complicated than you care to read. You'll get if you ask what color the sky is, you'll get an answer. It may or may not be what color the sky actually is where you are located. Depends on what more information you give. Or you can say, make an image of a delightful dinner party, and you'll get an image that sort of is a delightful dinner party. But will there be the food on the table that you want? I don't know. If you're vegan, there might be a chicken on the table. Maybe, maybe not. And so these prompts are simple. They leave a lot of the judgment, a lot of the taste, a lot of the decisions, frankly, up to the LLM. And so when we enter a prompt like this, take a look at the bottom left here. Tell me a bedtime story about a brave cat. This is ChatGPT 4.1, I think. And we get back an answer like this. It's giving us something that, like Nikki said, takes away the blank page syndrome. So it's like very, very useful, because now we don't have to sit there and write and come up with a cat's name. Instead, the LLM came up with it. It's Whiskers, right? So really useful to do a short prompt and get a sort of generic response. But if we look a little bit deeper at this response to a request for a bedtime story, you'll see that it is, in fact, just that. Very, very generic, very derivative. How is it derivative? Well, a couple of ways. One, the cat's name is Whiskers. Now, I don't know. For me, I like my cats named after things like food, right? Like ham or like milkshake or something like that, right? Whiskers is probably the most kind of basic name for a cat, that you could ever think of. But because we didn't specify it and we didn't specify how we wanted our cat named, we got back a basic name. And you can kind of see what's going on in the story. It starts once upon a time. Okay, a lot of bedtime stories do. It's got a puppy, and like the puppy gets stuck and chasing fireflies in the twilight, and then there's a happy ending and they all go to sleep. Okay, so look, as a human being, I can look at that bedtime story and I can evaluate it as like, yep, check, it is in fact a bedtime story. But I think the question is like, is it a good bedtime story? And that's really a matter of taste. Do you think this is a good bedtime story? Like when you read this, does it work for you?
So I got the chance to kind of read through all of this ahead of time, obviously. But it's to me, it's like you said, it's so subjective, right? Like I've got two little boys, and one of them loves cats, loves animals. He's gonna be like, yeah, this is exciting, except about the scary parts. He's like not so into that, right? Because he's the younger one. The older one, he's gonna like that adventure of like, ooh, there's something a little bit scary. But he could care less about animals. In fact, he usually tries to like we just went to a carnival the other day. He beelined away from the petting zoo. The other one went straight in. So I've got two separate stories that I need to have for two separate kids here. So for me, it's even more, there's more subjectivity going on there.
Totally. And like, I think that's a really interesting experience because that's your lived experience. And that defines your taste, right? That you want a bedtime story that is less scary, right? Maybe it's shorter or more relatable in some way for your family. And so let's look at what happened here with the prompt. Basically, we entered the simplest possible prompt, right? Tell me a bedtime story about a brave cat. And we got back something, but it wasn't to Nikki's taste. So if we want to imbue more of our taste and kind of put our thumb on the scale with respect to what we get back, we need to do a more sophisticated prompt. So let's do that. And let's talk about what a kind of better, more sophisticated prompt looks like. So that last prompt was like one line, basic, takes away the blank page syndrome, so useful, but a more sophisticated prompt can do more. So when we talk about better prompting, it involves expectations and context. So when we talk about expectations, it's about specifying what you want the agent to do, what to avoid or what to not do, like don't make it scary, how to format the response. And when we talk about context, it's kind of the everything else. Like Nikki just shared some kind of details about her family and her children. That's the kind of stuff that can be helpful to kind of feed in as context in your prompts. So on the right-hand side, we have a prompt that's a little more sophisticated and incorporates this framework and kind of best practice of prompting. So what does it say? It says, write a bedtime story that I can tell my 2-year-old that will result in them feeling sleepy. So already this prompt is more detailed because it has a much more specific intended outcome. It's not just a bedtime story, it's a bedtime story for your 2-year-old that will result in them feeling sleepy. The story should feature this and that, what to avoid or not to do. We're saying ensure the story is soothing, so no scary stuff. And then what's the format? Actually, I think it should rhyme because in my world, to Mike's taste, bedtime stories should rhyme. And the last one didn't rhyme, so that was a big problem for me and my judgment of whether or not that was a good bedtime story. So when we talk about good prompting, what you want the agent to do, what to avoid or not to do, and how to format the response. And then the context is sort of like this general brain dump where you can add anything else. And so, here we can say, they love to rhyme, they like this and that, and to sort of, feed in this kind of secondary information that could be used or could not be used in the generation of the response. Now, I will say this. Generating a prompt like this from a blank page, like going to chatgpt.com and trying to write a 4-paragraph prompt is actually pretty hard. Like that itself is a blank page syndrome. So it's really useful to start with a simple prompt, get yourself back a response, and then sort of edit what you get back. Oh, it's too scary. Okay, be careful to make it soothing. That's where this came from. Oh, it's too long. Well, make it shorter when read, right? Make it rhyme, right? It's much easier to be an editor than a creator sometimes. And so using a simple prompt and then responding to what you get back from the LLM is a really good way to kind of, it's called vibe prompting, I guess, kind of go back and forth and make sure that you're tuning your prompt more to your taste. So when you put a prompt in like this, that's kind of in this format and more built out, you tend to get a response that's much more tailored to your taste. And I keep saying those words, tailored and taste and kind of human judgment. And that's for a reason, because it's really your discernment about taste that matters so much when using these LLMs. You still have to apply your human judgment at the end. These are not going to run your entire life for you, right? And so your lived experience and your taste become very, very important, and arguably one of the bigger differentiators as we wade into this future together. So when you have a prompt like this, you get a much more tailored output. We look at this, it doesn't have whiskers anymore. It's got Cleo the cat, because I wanted rhyme and alliteration and stuff like that. It features a female human protagonist because I requested that. It features rhyme because I liked it. It's much shorter, so you can actually read it on the webinar slide now, which is excellent for both of us. And that's because I said make it shorter, under 2 minutes read, right? So this, to me, is a better response. Now, Nikki has different taste. You have different taste. Everybody does, and that's kind of the beautiful thing. Your prompt will be different. Your output will be different. This can really be tailored to one size fits one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of back to go back in the day a little bit when everybody was kind of learning how to Google correctly, right? And you had to know the right words to say, the right kind of key terms to put in to get your Google results to show you what you were really looking for. And we've kind of shifted now to prompting for today. Like you have to be an expert at prompting to get those results back that you want to get. Um, And it's funny because it's even for me personally has affected the way now that if I ever do Google, the way that I Google is now different because of of the way that I've adjusted speaking to the internet for prompting.
That's such a good point. Like 10, 15 years ago, like Google foo was like a big deal. And like I was really good at it. And that like somehow gave me a leg up, in the job market. Like I think the same thing for prompting now. And probably, if you get good at prompting in 2025, you probably have a leg up in even 26 and into 27, perhaps. All right, cool. So that's a little bit about prompting. And the hope is also, that's a takeaway for you that you can put in your pocket and take with you, regardless of kind of the rest of this webinar here. Like thinking about prompting, going from simple prompts to more sophisticated prompts, this framework that's on the page right now about what you want, what to avoid, format, that's the expectations, and then adding the context like that, hopefully is just a useful kind of life skill, like Nikki was saying, going forward. Okay, now we talked about LLMs. Let's talk about agents. And let's kind of contrast the two. So we talked about LLMs on the right side here as being these kind of general purpose AI assistants. You go to chatgpt.com, you can interact with an LLM. It's got kind of this like single search box experience like Google, and it really is trying to help you with anything and everything in your life. In contrast, agents are much, much more specific and built for a purpose. An agent's purpose is not to help you with everything, it's to help you with one thing. It's not to be infinitely flexible and help you, write a bedtime story, write an email, write a LinkedIn post. It's to do one of those three things at an excellent level. So agents are basically AI programs, and I'm using programs because it's sort of a last generation term, but hopefully that snaps us into some frame of reference here, where it does kind of one thing and it runs in a certain way. And it's really fit for purpose around a specific task. So LLMs, general purpose AI assistants, agents, AI programs fit for specific purpose. So when we think about then agents versus LLMs, what that means, and part of the reason that this is a tricky conversation nowadays, is that LLMs and agents can actually do a lot of the same things. So if we go to ChatGPT and take a look on the lower right here, and we say, build me a 4-day family-friendly itinerary for a trip to Stockholm, Sweden, I'll get back something. And similarly, I can build an agentic version of it on the left-hand side. So what's different about that agentic version? It has specific inputs. It just is asking me where to go. And it only is capable of building travel itineraries. It cannot write a bedtime story. But it's fit for purpose. And it is hopefully going to do a better job at that one particular job. And so one way to think about agents versus LLMs, beyond just like, is it fit for purpose or does it do sort of anything and everything, is that agents have specific inputs that are tailored to their use case. Whereas LLMs, you can put in kind of whatever you want, upload a file, like, put some text in, do whatever you want. Agents have prompts that are built in, programmed in, if you want to think about it that way. Whereas LLMs, you're writing the prompt. So one big advantage of agents is that you, as the end user of an agent, don't need to prompt. You can just say, hey, I want to go to Sweden, and someone's already done the work of building the prompt in for you. And then lastly, on the output front, agents will tend to have specific goals and kind of specific formats or constructs to their output, whereas the LLM will kind of figure it out on the fly. LLMs have lots of capabilities. They can make maps, they can make tables, whatever. But if there's sort of a best output format for that particular purpose that an agent is trying to serve, the agent will probably be sort of quote unquote programmed to do that, either in their prompt or by their builder in some other way. So LLMs are fantastic tools, right? And I think a lot of us are using them more and more in our day-to-day life. Agents are really tools for jobs that you want to get done in a particular way. And probably if you're thinking about building agents for yourself or for your team or for your company, they're for specific jobs or purposes that are, kind of frequent. They happen over and over, where you want it done in a particular way. And you don't want to have to prompt the same, kind of rewrite the same prompt every time. So when we think about output then for these two, when you ask an LLM for an itinerary, it'll give you, a sort of LLM style response, a bunch of text and bullets, right? Whereas when you ask an agent for it, it'll do something a little more specific because it was built for a specific purpose. So on the left-hand side, you can see this agent has like timestamps, right? It is family friendly by default, so I didn't need to ask it that. It's biasing itself towards sort of outdoor stuff and museums. It ends the days a little earlier. There's a strong family streak in this webinar today, isn't there, Nikki? but it's sort of just set up for this by default, whereas on the LLM side, I need to tell it all of these different things. Cool. Stephanie asked an interesting question in the chat. She asked, are agents better for integrations with other platforms with clearly defined outputs? I think it's interesting. Like, I would say sometimes. So agents are really useful when you kind of have a set of desired inputs and desired outputs, and then a certain set of actions you want to happen in the middle. And so I'd say less about like the structure and definition of those outputs, but more about you as the user of these tools knowing what you want. So agents can be used in a CRM environment, right? They can be used in a text-based environment, whatever. It's really about you knowing what inputs you want, what outputs you need, and what needs to happen in the middle. All right, cool. So that's a little bit on agents versus LLMs. What we're going to do now is actually go build an agent. And this is based on the assumption that you all either, while we've been talking today in the last half hour, or just in your life prior to today's session, you've used ChatGPT or Claude. If you haven't, you should probably go do it and check it out too. Because what we're going to do now is actually go into Agent.ai in just a second, and we are going to build ourselves an agent from scratch, basically. All right, so here's the process we're going to follow as we go about agent building. First thing we're going to do is actually not use our mouse and keyboard. We're going to do a bit of planning. The second thing, we're then going to go make the agent, build its actions, and then do some testing and iterating. So let's talk about this planning stuff first. It's kind of like setting out to create anything, do a piece of writing or anything. You need to have a good plan in your head before you attack it. So here, we got a little framework that you can use as you think about building agents. And Stephanie, this kind of has to do with your question too, right? Sort of thinking about where and how to deploy agents. So the framework that we really like when we think about agents is actually starting with people, not machines, and thinking about who is this for? And then thinking about what problem it solves in a very specific way. And lastly, only then, how will it actually work under the hood?
I love this. I use this every single time that I'm working on Agent.ai. I've kind of played with and built a couple of agents, and luckily for the who's it for all of them that I'm making, it's for me. So that top one is easy to cover, and I'm sure that you all will find that too.
All right, cool. So let's talk about an agent that we're going to build together, and then you too can actually go build yourself. So we're going to build an agent for content marketers. And if you're not a content marketer, if you're a business owner or a salesperson, you probably have the same problem in your life, which is that you often want to promote a piece of content on LinkedIn. But when you sit down on LinkedIn and you go to that like start a post, modal, it's a blank page syndrome, and it's annoying. And it's actually further annoying because you just got done writing the blog post or reading the blog post. So you feel like this should just be easier. To me, this is a great opportunity for Agentic AI because it's something you probably do a bunch at work. It's something that is kind of a drag, right? Like, I think it's fun getting all the likes and doing the comments and stuff. But right in the initial post, at least, taking away the blank page syndrome, like Nikki was saying, is a bit of a drag. And so the agent we're going to create is going to generate a LinkedIn post from a blog article, right? And then how is it actually going to work under the hood? We're going to build it together in just a moment, and I'll show you how. But we're going to input a blog post, so just take the URL. And then we're going to make an LLM call, and we're going to kind of imbue it with our brand tone so that it sounds like us. And then it's going to output like its LinkedIn post. So this is a very, very simple agent. And that's because we're going to do it live together here, and I don't want to bore you by like making something really complicated. But it's the beginning. And if you can get an agent up and running, kind of working, then you can start adding in all sorts of bells and whistles, right? You could add in, like your personal tone. You could add in whether or not you want images. There's a whole bunch of things that you could do. All right, so this is what we're going to create. It's for content marketers. It's going to generate a LinkedIn post from a blog article, and it's going to work in basically 3 steps. So should we hit it? All right, let's do it.
Do it.
Cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Agent.ai. And if you've never been here before, that's cool. Your homepage will look a little different. You'll have like a sign up button. But for now, try to pay attention to me rather than poking around the site too much, because I want to show you this so that you can go do it for yourself in just a moment. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see a bunch of agents on the marketplace that do all sorts of cool stuff. There's like video script generators, and if you're a marketer, ICP builders or earnings call analyzers if you're into public markets. There's all sorts of things. There's probably about 1,300, 1,400 agents on the marketplace. What we're going to do today is just go to click on Agent Builder in the upper right and build ourselves an agent. So when I go to Agent Builder, I can see agents that I've built in the past, and I'm going to go make a new agent. So I'm going to click Create Agent. And when I do that, there's a couple of different options that come up. There's these templates. These are an awesome way just to understand the capabilities of this type of platform. But for today and for this agent, I'm going to start from scratch and just do it myself. Cool. Now we're inside the agent builder in Agent.ai. So see, there's a couple of different kind of categories of tools in my toolbox here. There's settings, there's ways I can trigger my agent. There's a bunch of actions I can add in. We're going to go spend some quality time there in a second. And there's some advanced stuff if you want to get weird and go crazy. The simplest way to kind of start here, let's give our agent a name. So remember what we're going to do. We're taking a blog post and we're turning it into a LinkedIn post. So I'm just going to call it like blog post LinkedIn generator 9000. All right, cool. I'm going to skip over the description and the adding a video of it, or an icon or anything. All of that can be done later once this thing actually works and has a bit of a purpose and personality. There's a lot of different ways that you can trigger agents, and if you've ever heard agent portability, or you've seen agents like triggered via email or programmatically, all of that is possible. I'm not going to get into it right now, but if you're kind of excited by all those things I just said, great, here they are. If you're confused by all those things I just said, or you don't care, great, we're going to move on. And you don't need to really worry about it, because by default, your agents are going to be triggered manually. So let's go to the Actions tab, because this is really where the brains of the thing are going to be after we build them. So the very first thing we're going to do, if you recall back to our plan for our agent, is ask our user for a link to the blog post. So let's click on this Add Action button, and that's going to pull up a whole big toolbox of agent tools that we can use to build our agent. So see, there's ways to get user input, get data from other places, do things with HubSpot. Surprise, surprise, you can use AI. You can run processes like if statements, create output, and do some advanced wild stuff. For this simple agent, though, all we're going to do is ask the user, what blog post do you want to promote to make a LinkedIn post from? So we're going to get some input from our users, pulls up a new modal, and this is basically creating a form or a form field if you've ever built something like that in HubSpot or Typeform or things like that. And we're going to ask the user, what blog post do you want to promote on LinkedIn? I'm going to give it an example just to kind of show what we want here. And then I'm going to store whatever we get back from the user in a variable. So these variables in Agent.ai are really, really powerful. What they do basically is they allow you to store, manipulate, and transform information from users, from other places you can get data, so systems or public websites or things like that, and then pass them to LLMs to do cool stuff with. So you'll see how that comes into play in a second. Just want to kind of call out how useful and powerful these variables are. They're really kind of a piece of the backbone of how agents are built in this platform. All right, so I'm going to hit save, and you're going to see that step kind of slots itself in here. I can click on this little pencil icon and go back in there, and you'll see what I had before is still in there. So what blog post do you want to promote on LinkedIn? And whatever answer I get, I'm going to store on blog post link. All right, so that's our first thing. And we can even see it starting to come to life. It's like asking the question over on the right side. We can see kind of a side-by-side view of this agent starting to do things. So now we've asked our user, what's your blog post URL? The next thing we're going to do is call an LLM and ask the LLM to write our LinkedIn post. And we're going to pass that variable, the blog post link, into the LLM. If you've ever done a mail merge or done like hi first name and email marketing, very, very similar kind of concept to that. So I'm going to add another action, pulls up my toolkit again. I'm going to go click on Use AI, which is going to give me options for LLMs, image generation, audio, and some stuff that you won't see because I'm an admin, but it's coming soon from us. And I'm going to just use an LLM. That's what we just talked about. This is going to make a call out to an LLM of my choice. And I'm going to write my prompt in this kind of box right here. Before I write the prompt, I want to just draw your attention up to the drop down on the top here. There are lots and lots of different models in OpenAI. So if you are a model nerd and you care about the difference between GPT-4.1 and like, o3 or whatever, or you care about comparing, Claude versus OpenAI, or using the newest like Gemini models or whatever, there's a lot of stuff in here from all sorts of different places. One cool thing about about Agent.ai is you can get access to all these models for free, and you can very easily toggle between them. On the other hand, if what I just said is not of interest, or you're like, what is this guy talking about again? You can click auto optimize, and the platform will decide for you based off of your prompt what the best model is. I definitely get model fatigue where like a new model comes out and I'm like, man, do I got to learn about this thing again? So if you don't care or don't know, click auto optimize, leave it up to the machines, and they'll figure it out for you. All right, so now let's write our prompt. And remember, what we want to do here is set expectations in terms of what the agent should accomplish, what it should omit or not do, and the format it should follow. So I'm not going to make you, read my typing here. I've pre-written it. I'm going to drop it in just to speed things up a little bit. So my prompt starts, you're an experienced CMO and social media promoter. Read the content at, and here you can see I've got something special. I've got that variable that I grabbed before from the user. So think again about like email marketing, like hi first name or something like that. This is very similar. When this thing actually runs, it's not going to pass double bracket blog post link. It's going to pass what we got from our user. It's going to pass the URL we received from our user. To insert variables into your prompts, you click on the insert variable kind of button up here, and you'll see all the variables that you've already used in the agent. And that'll just plop in the variable in this double bracket notation. So when this actually runs, it'll say read the content at http:// like whatever the URL is, and then generate a professional engaging LinkedIn post that summarizes the key takeaways, highlights the relevance to professional audience, and encourages thoughtful engagement or conversation. Okay. Relatively generic, but like at least I'm telling the LLM what I want and a little bit about tone and what to do and what not to do. Something else that I can specify is I can begin to add in a bit of brand identity here. Right, I can add in like my brand tone. So professional, knowledgeable, conversational, aiming to educate, right? Like this is kind of a good, healthy brand tone that's perhaps for my brand and how I want this to actually read. So when you go to build this agent yourself in a moment, you should feel free to add in more detail, right? Add in your brand tone, like, add in language, right? Add in, length, things like that, and play around with the kind of content parameters and format output and see what you can generate and what you can get out of this thing. All right, last piece here is to store what we get back from the LLM in another variable. So by default, this isn't going to like get emailed to you or like go anywhere useful. It's just going to go into this variable. So the LLM is going to pass us back its response, the LinkedIn post itself, and we're going to store that in a variable. I'm going to hit save, and that too slots itself into the agent builder here. So now what are we doing? We're asking the question, what's the URL of the LinkedIn post you want to promote? And then we're going to an LLM, and we're saying, go make a LinkedIn post by using our prompt, which follows the best format that we talked about before. All right, one more piece we need to do. And I guarantee that when you go to build this, you too will forget to do this the first time that you build something. We need to add one more action to actually show the output on the screen. Because remember, we got that output back from the LLM, we stored it in a variable. So the last thing we need to do is show the output to the user. There's a lot of other options here, how you can kind of handle output. You can send it in an email, you can push it to a Google Doc, you can push it to a blog post, you can save it to a file. But we're going to keep it simple in this kind of thing we're doing right now together and just show the output to the user. When I do that, pulls up another one of these modals. You're kind of getting the picture now of how this thing works. I can go find my variables that I've used before by clicking on Insert Variable. And here's the LinkedIn post variable that I created in the last step. I'm going to plop it in here, hit save, and this step is going to slot itself into the agent build. So let's pause here. We have the input, we have the LLM call, we have the output. The input stores what we get from the user in a variable called blog post link. Then the LLM call uses that variable to ask the LLM to create a LinkedIn post about that blog post. And then we store the output we get back from the LLM in this LinkedIn post variable. Then we're using the last step to display that output to the user. So let's give it a run and see if this thing works. I put in a URL, SmartBug blog, good blog. Go read it, go subscribe. What's happening in the background here? It's taking a little bit of time to call out to an LLM, right? That does take like, a couple seconds. And then it returned what we saw and it displayed it on the screen. So here we can see it did in fact write a post. And this kind of looks like a LinkedIn post. It smells like a LinkedIn post, right? It's got a couple of emojis, like, yep, you see that sometimes. It's got, this kind of stuff, why it matters. It makes a call to action of the community, which is kind of the best practice. It uses a few hashtags too. Okay, cool. So congratulations us. We made an agent that does a thing. Now, is this agent very smart? No. Is this agent tailored to your taste, your brand tone, all the things you need? Absolutely not, right? But this is in fact agentic in the sense that it has inputs, it has outputs. Those inputs and outputs are designed for a specific purpose. And then inside it, it has a prompt. And that prompt is also fit for purpose. Remember what it was? You're an experienced CMO and social media promoter and all that. So this is, in fact, agentic AI. It's very, very basic. But I think when you start to build these things, you actually want to build the simplest possible version first, and then scaffold up and build something better. As an example, my taste, I don't like emojis in my LinkedIn posts because I feel like they're written by AI. So I would go back to my prompt and I would say, make sure you don't use emojis like an AI would use or something like that. I think this is too long. It doesn't sound like me, right? And so I might give it some kind of guidelines to how I speak and how I post on LinkedIn. Or I might even add an action to go get my latest 25 or 50 LinkedIn posts so it can talk like me. But the very, very first thing to do before you kind of complete all those dreams and hopes and builds is to build something really, really simple that just works. It's the hello world. It's like the, this thing is on kind of message before you go make it complicated. Cool. Once I've done this, I can kind of publish my changes because I'm happy with it. I can click on run. That's going to open up a new tab. This is kind of the external version of it. It's much simpler. It doesn't have the build next to it. So this is what I would use as a user if I wanted to share this with colleagues. And you'll see it does basically the same thing. It's just going to do it in a kind of cleaner format. I can always go back and edit, right? Stuff like that. Also, notably, this agent lives at a URL. I can give it a more human-friendly name if I want. But that URL by default is going to be shareable, and anybody who has the link can access to it. You can make agents on Agent.ai fully private or fully public, but by default, it's shareable if you have the link. So I'll pop this in the chat, and y'all can go check it out. What I'm also going to do is enable all of you to see the steps so you can copy this agent. Now when I click run, and sorry, if you already opened it, you might need to refresh because I did this too late. When I go back and run it, oops, the agent will have a button that says view agent flow. And this is kind of an open source feature where you can kind of check out how this agent works. And if you want to clone it for yourself, you can click this little clone agent button and you'll get a brand new version of this for your own purpose that you can start to work from. Okay, so we just covered a bunch of ground, but the simple thing I want to reiterate is this. Agents have inputs, they do a little bit of AI in the middle, and they have outputs. So this is in fact agentic AI, it's just very basic. That's number one. Number two, when you go to build something for yourself, and I recommend you build this kind of as a trial agent, keep it really, really, really simple to start, then add the bells and whistles later. And number three, I shared the link in the chat if you want to go check this out and kind of tool around and click into it and see how it works. Okay.
We've got a ton of questions flooding in too, if we want to take a minute to answer some of those. Mike.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. If you start back up, you'll have to scroll up a little bit. But Vanita, it looks like, asks, the agents that we build, can they be used on cloud and servers? What does it cost to run and maintain, API calls, etc.?
Yeah. So this platform is fully free. It's like radically free. Why, how, all of that. We are sort of a piece of HubSpot. We are not actually HubSpot at Agent.ai, but we are in the family. So there's just a different set of economics, and we're excited to pass that on to everybody. Our belief is that this stuff should not be sort of gated by, cost or access. Like, you should be able to use these models and experiment with them. It's an important toolkit nowadays. So we want to make it free. That's on cost. In terms of triggering kind of portability, yeah, there's a bunch of different options inside the trigger here. So, I kind of glossed over this because it's more technical, but, there's manual only, which is how we're running it. I could run this agent every day or something if I wanted to, right? I can trigger it via email. So I can send an email to a special email, and that will trigger the agent, and then it will email me back its response. Works better with certain types of agents than others, but this one's actually a reasonable candidate for that. I can trigger an email when a HubSpot contact is added or when a company's added. I need to integrate my HubSpot portal in order to do that. But the question was about, sort of more extreme portability, right? And so agents all have an endpoint that they live at, and there's a curl command if you want to do it that way. So you could indeed trigger an agent via like a Salesforce flow, a webhook in HubSpot, or really anything else. And we see increasingly kind of cool use cases coming from that every single day. Hopefully that answered the question.
Awesome. Let us know if it didn't, Vineet. Then Stephanie's got a question. She says, are there limits to model usage by the agent that we create?
No.
Love it. Hanson, it looks like we possibly got your question answered here. There are a couple people that chimed in. Hanson asked if agents can reference docs that have like full brand guidelines to follow,
Yeah.
rather than, dropping in text that kind of has what, the reference that you need to make there.
Yeah, totally. So to do that, there's probably a couple of ways. If you really have documents that you want to be consistently referenced, the best way to do it in this platform is to use a feature that's called knowledge base. So knowledge bases are, if you care about the technicals, they're vectorized stores, right? Where you can pull data into your agent's context window. Put more simply, yeah, you can give it a document. So the way to do that is to get data from a builder's knowledge base, and you can basically select a knowledge base that you configure underneath the settings. If you click on your face in the upper right, and it will pull a certain number of documents, or kind of query your knowledge base for certain things. So there is that functionality in here. The other way to do it, it's a little kind of sloppier, but look, it works largely because AI has gotten so good, is you can just toss URLs at these things, and for the most part, they will work. The other thing to do is you can, get a file and toss that at the LLM, right? And that'll work too. So there's a bunch of ways to do it to incorporate that type of context.
Awesome. I love that. From Rakesh, we might have answered this already, but he asks, can we integrate the entire workflow as an API to Invoke?
Yes, that is what this
Yep.
will do. Yeah, but I think powerfully and notably, this does the whole agent. So you can build your agent flow here, and then it gets one simple endpoint to call. If you do want to call individual actions, there is a way to do that. If you want to just call the Gen AI action, and you can check out the documentation at docs.agent.ai for that.
Awesome. Then from Jamie, Jamie asked, can agents log into sites using my username and password?
So look, technically, stuff like this is possible, Jamie. I don't know if you want to do it for a number of reasons related to security and who knows what kind of outcomes. There is some rudimentary emphasis on rudimentary capability we're working on to, excuse me, it's over here, do operator stuff. This is not publicly available yet. It probably will be in a couple weeks. So when we do ship that, then there will be the capability of having like an operator style type thing. You could kind of embed your username and password in an API call or something of that nature. It would be pretty gnarly from a technical standpoint. And again, I'm not totally sure you would want to, just from a security and unpredictable outcome standpoint.
Hanson, I see your second question. Since it's a little bit less technical, I'm going to come back to it. But Chris asked, if I create my own custom GPT in my ChatGPT account, is there a way to call that specific GPT rather than the generic account that calls the LLM? Use case would be that he trained a specific GPT with certain knowledge and don't want to recreate that within
Totally.
Agent.ai.
Yeah, totally. So you wouldn't use the use AI kind of drop down, right? Because that's just going to limit you to the kind of public models, even though there are lots and they do lots of stuff. But yeah, if you've already gone through the work of like training a model and you like its memory and all that, you could probably just want to call it via API, right? And grab the endpoint of that uh, custom GPT and toss it in here and get your response back. Functionally, we're talking about the same thing, right? We're calling out to a model, we're getting a response. It's just you're going to invoke your personal model. As opposed to kind of the general public models.
Awesome. Okay, now back to Hansen. So Hansen's saying, in again, Hansen for reference here, he's asking, how does this, what we've built here, make the LLM stronger at doing this specific task in a way, that's
Yeah,
different than, GPT. And to kind of reiterate, we were building something tight, small, quick to easy to learn, really, for this group. Um, but I'll let Mike take it away from after
yeah. I
that.
mean, look, Hanson, you're right. We didn't build a better chat GPT in 12 minutes, right? So
Yeah.
you're right. What we did build is something that is agentic in nature as opposed to an LLM, right? So this thing only does one thing. It asks you this one question. The prompt is built in as opposed to going to ChatGPT and kind of entering it there. I think what you're getting at is like, hey, Mike, why would I bother using this? And the answer is you probably wouldn't in its current form, right? This is built as a demo to kind of show the platform. But what I think you could do, or perhaps should do, is to test out what would happen if you did maybe one of two things, right? Perhaps you added in increasingly more context here, like files for brand guidelines or knowledge-based references or things like that. That's number one. What could you do if you, scraped my LinkedIn for the last 25 posts that I wrote to adopt my tone, right? What if you asked for image generation along with it? Then the package becomes, I think, much more valuable from a user standpoint. You're right. Right now, it's sort of simple and like probably not worth the effort. But this is the type of thing that you could kind of build and iterate on, and in time could take the work off of your plate and onto the agent's plate for doing this type of blog post to LinkedIn writing. All right. Any more?
I love it. These are great questions, y'all.
Cool. Anything else, Nikki, that we missed?
I, um, let's see. Rakesh has a question. Emily, thank you for the use case. Rakesh asked, can we build SaaS tools using the platform? If yes, how secure is the data?
Um, Short answer, yes, in that this is software, runs as a service. If you're thinking about billing and all that, then no, there's not currently like a native way to do billing in here, right? To like take a credit card or something. But you certainly build stuff that replicates lots of functionality of SaaS platforms, which is, I think, for those of us that are fans of the last generation of software, that's a pretty like wild type of experience to be able to replicate whole pieces of platforms in like a half hour. In terms of security, kind of, I would say treat this as you would treat the underlying models. So, you probably wouldn't put state secrets into ChatGPT, or hopefully you wouldn't, right? You would use your best judgment on whether or not you wanted to put company kind of stuff like customer lists or revenue and kind of financials into a public model. Because remember, what this is doing under the hood is it's calling those public models. One difference when you call models via API is that OpenAI and Anthropic will not use that data to train the LLM. So there is a bit of increased security when doing it via API as opposed to directly into the UI. But you still need to sort of use that human judgment and filter to be careful with truly sensitive data.
Yep. Just looking at some of these responses, Laura, I think that's a great. So Laura responded to Hanson and she mentioned, one thing that you could build an agent of is some of you doing a task that you know how to do, but maybe other people don't have that expertise and they wouldn't understand exactly how to do it. And then you're essentially providing them with like a piece of you of this is how I would do this. So you just have to enter in these inputs here, and then you're going to get the result that's similar to what you would have done.
Such a good idea. Yeah.
I like that. Bram. So Bram asked, would it be possible to create an assessment, say 15 questions, answers with, radio buttons, and after that last question, have a result page? And yes, that's actually the first agent that I built, was sort of a quiz experience that had AI built into it. I'll share it with you, Bram, so that you can take a look, and I'll let you poke around and look at that. But yeah, absolutely, that was the first kind of agent that I built, was an experiential quiz, if you will.
Yeah, to do that, you basically would just add in more get user input actions, and that would essentially create a multi-step form. So if we just do this real quick, we can add in like a little question, like, we can just pop that in here, and you'll see that now this agent will ask us our first step. It'll say step 1 of 2, and then Bram, it's going to kind of work a little bit, and then here's the next question, right? So I didn't hook up this thing to anything, so it's still going to do the same thing when I hit go, but just as an example of, you can add in more forms, and there's drop downs, multi-selects, all the kind of familiar form tools.
Love it. All right, we've got another question here. Jamie LeBlanc says, when scraping LinkedIn, for example, does the agent require your login info, or does it just scrape the public info without being logged in?
So you're talking about these actions, I think, under get data. Yeah, let's talk about these for a moment. So none of these require your credentials. These are all like kind of publicly available information, or places where we've developed relationships with these providers to make it work. So yeah, you don't need to put your Instagram handle in order to retrieve the details of an Instagram profile. This is just kind of straight up fetching.
Love it. I think that's pretty much it. Sudipto asked, what's the long-term goal of Agent.ai?
Yeah.
Talk to that.
It's a good question, and very honestly, it's something that we get a fair bit, because without having a paid plan and stuff, it's like it raises an eyebrow for people who are kind of familiar with the industry and hip to the way this stuff works. I said it before, but it bears repeating. We're kind of part of the HubSpot ecosystem, so we get the benefit of taking a slightly longer view. And our view on it is that these tools are really critical infrastructure to the companies of today's generation as well as the next, but also like to the people of today's generation and the next. And what we want to do is democratize access to agents, to agent building, to agent discovery. That's why we have an agent builder, an agent marketplace, so that everybody, regardless of what company and what resources you have, can learn, build, and do cool stuff with these agents. I think most of the agent builders that are out there require some paid plan, or they have a free plan, but the limits are like really kind of bad. We are remarkably forever free, and we really hope that that levels the playing field for everybody to get the most out of this type of tech. Cool. All right, we're at the halfway point, so if there are other questions, happy to answer them async. But want to kind of keep going. So there's one more slide here that I just want to share on the LinkedIn thing, and I think I forget who it was. Hanson, you kind of pointed this out. You're like, Mike, this thing doesn't do that much. That's right, it doesn't. But here's a slightly more built out kind of version of this. And more things that it can do. So, here's a bunch of kind of steps. You can see what a more sophisticated build of a blog post LinkedIn generator looks like. And here's an example of the type of output you get. This isn't meant for you to read. It's just sort of to see that it could do more. So you could improve the triggers and do this via email, or wire it up, via API to some other system. Like HubSpot or something. You could add more of your taste. Like if you think really good LinkedIn posts should have images, right? Then like go for it and put in images. This one does that. It could add more sophisticated context. We spoke about knowledge bases, things like that. And it could also just like be more helpful. I mean, think about how actual content marketers work, right? You're not usually making one post. You're usually making, like a few. And in doing so, perhaps you want the agent to output like 3 posts or 5 posts or whatever to your taste is the right thing. So, you could do a series of posts, you can improve tone, things of that nature. This agent here is also a public one, so I'm going to toss this one in the chat too, and you can see. One second. You can see how it works. The link I'm sending, it has kind of a pre-built output, but if you click on Restart Agent at the bottom, you can kind of see how it works. So this agent is called Blog Post LinkedIn Content. Same thing, you input just one URL, but it does a heck of a lot more. And hopefully it passes your kind of bar for like, would I actually use this thing versus should I just use an LLM? It does a kind of tighter content summary. I think the writing is a little better than what mine did, kind of just with a lazy prompt. The images are useful and good. I think the insights are better. I think it's using a kind of more deep research oriented model, right? And it's giving me 3 posts critically rather than just one. I really like this one. I think it's like a much better version of an agent that does this blog post to LinkedIn stuff. just an example of a more built out one. And just like with the other agent we shared, you can look under the hood, click on View Agent Flow, and see how it works. And you'll see it's got some loops and some if statements. Like this, does a heck of a lot more, some scraping than the one we just built. So take a peek at that if you want to see a kind of fully fledged one. But really building the simple thing first is a critical first step. Like if you set out to build a 15-step agent, it's not going to work. It's like just trying to sit down and cook like the world's most sophisticated meal without having ever made eggs. It's just not going to happen, right? So you really want to start simple, and then once you get it working, start adding features one by one. Okay, cool. So at this point, we're about an hour in. That kind of concludes like the webinar portion, and we really hope that all of you will stick around to do the hands-on portion, because that is where the magic truly happens. Before then, we're going to take a quick break, just like go take a break, stretch your legs, grab a coffee or water, whatever it is. And also, we would like to offer you, because you are awesome, some Agent.ai swag. So help yourself to a free t-shirt, hat, notebook. There might be one or two other types of things on there, and I'll drop the URL in the chat too, and this will get shipped to you in kind of a week or two. Shipping is not super fast, but the price is right. Cool.
All right, we'll see you all in a couple minutes here. What do we say?
Yeah, we'll see you at how about 8 past?
Yep, 8 past sounds good.
Excellent. And for those of you that are still sticking around and haven't left the computer, I figure let's use the wonderful power of AI to play some AI generated music about building agents.
We're the builders with a plan in hand, stacking dreams like castles in sand, coding coffee our secret blend, inventive days that never end. Agent building fevers gonna ignite curious minds working all night. Wheels are spinning ideas, blueprints dancing in electric skies. Look at the workshop through curious eyes. Laughter echoes as the clock unwinds, turning chaos into perfect designs. Agent building fevers gonna ignite curious minds working all night. Wheels are spinning, ideas take flight. We're shaping the puzzle pieces fall into place. Fun's a rhythm you can't erase. What do we create? We'll blaze the trail through every twist and every detail. Agent building fevers gonna ignite curious minds working all night. Wheels are spinning, ideas take flight. We're shaping the spark that feels just right.
All right, I'm glad the song got a lot of love. I will say prompting to create music is a whole different game. Image and music prompting is like a further different thing than text-based prompting. All right. Everybody back? I see Amanda, I see Lindsay. Hopefully other folks are back too. Excellent. Nikki, should we keep going?
Yeah, let's keep it moving.
Great. All right, so it is time to build. This part's going to be a lot of fun. And what I wanted to do before we jump into the build is just talk through like the agent plan. So remember, before you start building, even if you're doing it right now in the background while we're talking, like take a break and think about who are you building for? What problem is it solving? And then lastly, what are the steps? So if you're currently building steps and you haven't done the people in the problem, take a break and think about the people in the problem. So for the LinkedIn agent that we just built, blog post to LinkedIn agent, it's for content marketers. So it's pretty dialed in from a sort of persona standpoint. It's not for marketers. It's not for, like owners, which might have a different tone. It's for content marketers. It's generating a single blog post from a blog article, very simple. And it's doing that in kind of 3 steps. Input for the blog post, 1 LLM call, and 1 post output. This is a good thing to keep in mind if you want to build your first agent that actually is this, in fact, this agent itself.
All right, and I'm going to drop that link to the agent down here. Just again, I know that that Mike already placed it in there, but I'm just bringing it back to the top. Everybody's session, everybody's chats there.
Perfect. And now we're going to take about the next half hour, so until call it 45 past to a quarter of the next hour, to kind of break apart and go build. So in the first couple minutes, this is what we suggest. Like, go create an Agent.ai account. You're going to need one to build. It's free. Just use your email, nothing else. Make the account. Then start looking around, like go create a new agent or check out some of the agents in the marketplace or check out the agent that Nikki just shared in the chat. And start just to familiarize yourself with the tools and the capabilities. Then start to develop a plan. You're welcome to create the same agent that we've been talking about for a little bit here, like the blog post to LinkedIn one. That's a terrific place to start. And then you can start to customize it and add in all the bells and whistles that you would want for your content marketing, if that suits your taste, right? If not, you're welcome to build something else. You could build, a wine pairing agent or a itinerary planner or, a snippy out of office generator to send to your boss, whatever it is. And then use the bulk of the time to actually build. It's probably going to take you about 20 minutes to build your first agent, even if it's only 3 or 4 steps, just because it's a new tool and you probably haven't seen it before. So give yourself plenty of time. At quarter of, we will come back into the general session. What we're going to do is actually divide everybody into their own breakout room, I think, Nikki, right?
Yep,
cool.
That's exactly right.
And what that's going to enable you to do is kind of 2 things. One, it'll give you just the privacy to go build without having your face in front of everybody if you're on video or something like that. 2 is if you need help, if you get stuck, you can use the raise hand functionality in Zoom. And myself or Nikki or others, a few of us who are going to be popping around, will come and help you get unstuck, right? So if you're like, I can't figure out where do I put the prompts, or why doesn't my agents show the thing I thought it would show, just raise your hand and we'll try to pop in shortly and sort you out. And we'll do that in kind of a private way so you don't feel like you need to do it in front of the couple dozen folks that are here. When we come back together, we'll have about 15 minutes left. And if you would like to share your agent at that point, you are more than welcome to. Even if you're only sharing the idea of the agent, even if you couldn't get it working, I think it's just a lot of fun to be able to kind of share your brilliance with one another and talk about how we might use these tools in either our life or our work or our families or whatever it is.
I love it. A few logistical notes. So I believe that when you all move into your breakout rooms, you might not be able to see the chat anymore that's currently here in the main session. So I would go ahead and grab that link, drop it into, if you've got your own Slack channel open or a note on your laptop, just so you have access to get to the agent that Mike just built on the call with us now. And then when we return to the main room, if you are, happen to be taking notes for yourself in your chat or something like that, your breakout room chat will also disappear. So just a tip to kind of keep your notes locally on your computer. I will be dropping messages. You'll see little banners that'll come across your screen to kind of keep you on track for time as a reminder of, okay, you should have had your account, created by now, or you should be starting on building your agent, just so everybody has that kind of check-in. And then if for some reason we're not hopping into your breakout room and you've raised your hand, you can always feel free to jump back in. There should be a button that'll say, come back to the main room. You can pop back in there, and then that way we can kind of get you sorted out and put you back into a spot where you feel comfortable moving forward. I think that's it. Or is everybody good? Mike, you good?
let's do it. This is the fun part.
All right. See y'all in a few. All right. Looks like we have everybody coming back into the room with us now, Mike.
Awesome. So that was fun. It was really cool to see people like ideate and like, oh, can I do this thing? Like, how do I like put these kind of building blocks together in the right way? And then see folks who are like, oh, it's alive. It does a thing. Wait, but it doesn't do what I want it to do. How do I make sure it doesn't have this thing or that thing or whatever? And yes, those are steps on the like agentic AI building journey, because I think pretty much everybody struggles with those same things as you start out. You're like, oh, it's like kind of right, but how do I, bend it to do exactly what I want, right? And that's just part of the fun. So is there anybody that would like to share what they've built? We have probably 8 minutes. So if anybody built something they would like to show off, be happy to do so. It's also okay if not. A little pressure.
I'm happy to share mine if there isn't anybody else.
The floor is yours, Amanda. Yeah. Here, I'll stop sharing and you're welcome to share your screen.
All right, super basic. My first time doing this, and really I wanted something that's on my mind is I got to do keyword research for a website. So that's what I built mine to do. Essentially, I put in this, and then what I did is I told it I prompted it. I don't know where my steps are now. Actions. There we go. I prompted it to do research, but it was pretty specific to the website I was putting in and pretty specific to their competitors. What did I do? There we go. And so when I do that, it gave me an output of research, which was really cool. It showed me like the top keywords that this website that I just put in should be ranking for, and it did compare that website against the competitors. You'll see it pop up here in a second, I think. But there we go. What I noticed that it was doing is it's doing a lot of analysis. Oh, see, now this changed a little bit for some reason, like basketball video highlights. The first time I did this, it had no keywords on highlights, and it occurred to me that I should have put that in my instructions to the LLM model, that I want this to focus, the product focuses more on celebrating sports and capturing highlights and less on analyzing your performance. But I see in the second time that I ran it, it's giving me highlights. And then what it did is it gave me competitor analysis, because those are their two biggest competitors right now. And so that's kind of the basics of what I did, and I can use, just like Mike said, you have to, learn how to make eggs before you can make a really good meal. I understand now how to fix this very basic version to make it even better, and I think that's my takeaway.
That's
Well, it's fun.
cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us.
Stuff. Sudipto, apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name. You're welcome to go next.
No, you're pronouncing it correctly. So let me. So what I built was, I don't think it's working 100%, but I can show the idea that I had. So the idea here is, I basically built built an agent to summarize YouTube videos, right? And the interesting thing is, if you search this on ChatGPT or Perplexity, it'll say I cannot access this YouTube video, right? But what I had found, earlier versions of Gemini used to do pretty well. And I see that certain versions of Gemini, like I have Gemini for work and like 2.5 Flash, actually do that, right? So my thing is pretty easy, right? The user prompt, hey, give me the YouTube video link. And then I just made sure that I use 2.5 Pro or Flash. So I was tinkering around with this because it's sometimes kind of hallucinating a little bit. But I'm going to just use to flash and just save. And I saved it to a output and, just printing that output, right? And seeing if that works. I'm just going to publish changes and try it out. There are some potential issues, but what I'm going to try to do is, let's see if I'm going to choose one which probably does not have ads. Right? I'm going to just choose this YouTube video because I see that it probably could run into certain issues if there are ads. So it's probably this one. So I'm going to just say this and go. So sometimes it's giving me the wrong output. But again, if it works, yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
messing it. I was sometimes getting the right output, sometimes not. But if I run it on a vanilla Gemini, it actually works. So I don't know what's the challenge here exactly.
Yeah. So this is like one of those funny things where you'd think that because Google made Gemini, it would have access to the Google catalog, right? Like YouTube and stuff.
Correct.
But in fact, no. So I think like two thoughts for you.
So it works here though. Like if I see
Yeah. So
Flash and Gemini, it does.
This is the
Yeah.
first thought. I kind of glossed over this in the presentation, but when you're actually going to like a page like this, you are not accessing the LLM directly. There are a lot of tools that the LLM is using. And so when you see like thinking or like looking up or reason, like those are kind of moments where the LLM is, putting something in between you and the model to basically make your experience better. So in this case, what Gemini is doing is it's probably going and pulling a transcript or something like that of the YouTube video. You can basically replicate that functionality in Agent.ai though, because this is like a cool use case. There is a way in the Get Data menu to get a YouTube transcript. And so that's probably what you want to use. So get the video link, get the YouTube transcript, and then toss the transcript at the LLM and ask it to summarize it, and you'll get what you want like 100% of the time.
Got it. Okay, I'll play around with that and see what
it's a cool idea though, because I think just like Amanda's, it's a repetitive task, like keyword research, like watching hour-long keynotes, like who's got the time for this stuff in this day and age, and it just like economizes your time against something that would otherwise take a lot of time. It's very cool.
Exactly. Same thing with Spotify also, right? Like public Spotify accounts. Like I'm sure like there is some agent tool or some plugin out there which does it, but like that would be pretty cool if we can use it in a daily basis, right? Because super repetitive task, as you said.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome use cases. We've got 5 minutes left, so I'm just gonna head back to some like couple of closing remarks, but very cool to see all of you kind of, getting creative, rolling up your sleeves, which I would say is the most important thing in this day and age to learn this new tech. Well done. So Nikki, should we talk about what's next?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. So a couple more ideas. We wanted to just leave you with a few takeaways of ideas of things that you might want to do. So we suspected there's some marketers on the call, as we found out. That was right. Thank you, Amanda. And so, if you are a marketer, right, thinking about keyword research, as you just saw, but a couple other ideas. We have our blog post to LinkedIn post generator, but also like just a blog post idea generator, taking away that blank page syndrome, trying to generate blog post ideas that are, not in your current corpus of published blog posts that are on brand, that have to do with certain pillar topics, whatever. You could create a really good blog post idea generator for your company, for your brand. There's probably 1 or 2 on Agent.ai already, but you could create one that's really tuned to your taste. Similarly, a campaign tagline bot, like I think this is hard, and I'm somebody that now, as you know, talks a lot, but finding the right words is tricky. Right. So like finding exactly those right 1 or 2 words, or if you want a pun or alliteration, like you can bake that into a campaign tagline bot, and it would be a good way to kind of come up with, the right few words for that new campaign, for that landing page, for whatever it is. For folks in sales, a couple other ideas. Using an agent to check the fit of a potential company. So input a URL and see if it fits. Does it have the right number of employees? Is it, in the right industries and the right geography, stuff like that. Craft the opener of an email based off of somebody's LinkedIn profile on their website or other information, and then write an icebreaker for a discovery call. So on your first call, like, I could give him my LinkedIn profile and Nikki's, and an agent could sort of figure out what we have in common and what we should, what I should talk about to break the ice on a first call. I think stuff like that is, again, a really good use for agents, because these are things that salespeople are doing, dozens of times a day. Cool. So just a couple of quick ideas. And then hopefully, if you think back to the purpose, way before you learned all your new Agentic AI skills, the purpose of today's session, which was understand some AI basics, build something fun, and then share your brilliance, which we got to do a little bit too. Hopefully you were able to accomplish all three. And if you weren't able to yet build something for yourself, no problem. Like, continue. We have a community at community.agent.ai. We have documentation at docs.agent.ai. You have all the builder tools. You have one another. So excited to see what you build. You're welcome to go post about it or something on LinkedIn. And then lastly, feel free to leave, a couple of thoughts for us about this session itself. We love doing these. It's a real blast to be able to, help folks kind of take advantage of this new technology. It's what we stand for at Agent.ai. It's what you all at SmartBug have been doing for, I don't know, for forever. Since time immemorial, is helping people get the most out of technologies to grow their businesses. So if you have feedback, you can scan the QR code. I'll put the link in the chat, and you can let us know what you thought. Nikki, any final remarks?
Yeah, I'm just glad that everybody that can make it today was so engaged. We had so many of you asking great questions, and I think that's really the heart of this entire kind of endeavor, is being curious, asking questions, seeing what you can do, and so yeah, I'm just glad to have everybody here. We've got a ton of more AI offerings coming in the future from out of SmartBug. We also have AI services to help people dive even deeper. If you're trying to figure out, well, how do I use what's natively in HubSpot? Or can you guide me further on how to incorporate Agent.ai? Or maybe you need something that's totally custom, that's like natively built into your site. That's what our team is here to do too. So we're on this journey with everybody else on figuring out how AI is shifting day to day and how we can use it every day to make us a little bit more productive. So I appreciate Mike having you here for all of your expertise and knowledge of Agent.ai especially, but just the AI expertise that you bring is really great. So appreciate everything that we're able to bring to us today.
It was a great party. Thanks to you, and thanks mostly to all of you for attending, for building, for your creativity, and for deploying your human taste on top of these new machine friends too. All right, have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.